The portals of enlightenment have opened, and your journey of mind, body, and spirit has begun. Welcome to Portals to Enlightenment. And now your host, psychic medium and traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and medical Qigong, radio show personality, as well as member of the Asian American Journalist and Media Association, psychic medium Sherry.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Portals to Enlightenment, your journey of body, mind, and spirit. I'm Sherry. I'm actually psychic medium Sherry, and I'm the host, and I'm here to go and present different things every week for our listeners in different wide range of interest. And I am also the co-host of Paranormal Horizons radio show every Sunday with Jason Ophir. This week, we're going to present a new guest. His name is Jason Macleod, and he is going to talk about the science and spirituality behind the paranormal. He has a book out, and it's called Demon Experience, The Dark Force, A Dark Siege, The Kinetic Family Nightmare. So I'm going to put Jason on. This is going to be a very interesting show because he's going to talk about not only his experience or what had happened, but also how the human consciousness and how we experience these things and how we can deal with them and be able to become better people, raising our consciousness. So we're going to put Jason on. Jason?
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you, Jason?
I am great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, very welcome, and thank you for spending the time coming on and spending, being able to go and share your experience, your knowledge for our listeners so that they can be inspired, empowered, and be able to take it with them and, go from there. So, Jason, I'm going to have you go on the floor because there's so much for you to share. It's unbelievable.
There's a lot to share, and again, thanks for having me on, and I really appreciate your listeners taking the time out of their day to listen to the broadcasts and to hear what I have to say. But my name's Jason Macleod, and I have been basically delving into the paranormal since I was just a senior in high school back in 1986, and I had the privilege and the pleasure and the honor of, because I lived in Connecticut, working for and with the legendary Ed and Lorraine Warren since 1990. And that was a complete synchronicity. Everything in my life has been a synchronicity as far as when I needed a specific piece of the puzzle to be put in place. I met certain people and encountered certain situations and came upon specific information that really fit that puzzle piece into this grand mosaic, I call it, which is the culmination of everything that I've learned so far, and there's so much more to learn, obviously. But I had incredible experiences since I was young, since I was a very young boy, and my beliefs about, why I'm here and what I'm here to do, and here to accomplish something very important and to help my fellow man. And the catalyst was basically when I was ready, the bizarre synchronicity that led me to meet the Warrens. So I'm sure everybody, if you're into the paranormal, you know who Ed and Lorraine Warren are. If you don't, Ed's was one of 7 demonologists in North America, and Lorraine is a light trance medium. She's still with us at the age of 92. But they were the pioneers of the entire modern ghost investigation craze that is now completely a craze. That's why I said that. But these were very two dedicated individuals, very pious individuals, very dedicated to their Catholicism and to their interest in researching the paranormal and what was going on. And the number of cases they've investigated are well into the thousands. But I know we're short on time in this first segment that we're going to do together, but I'll just try to explain my purpose behind all this. I was basically interested in really discovering the secrets behind what happens when we leave the body. And I knew as a young boy that we were consciousness, that we were awareness, temporarily embodied having a physical experience. But then when that physical experience was over, our consciousness or our soul moved on to other experiences. And I can talk all day about the mysteries about what I was trying to uncover, but what I was successful in uncovering since working with the Warrens and since branching off on my own and meeting incredible psychics and incredible visionaries and people who all across the country is just nothing short of astounding. So that I kept all these things to myself, and I'd investigated dozens of demonic cases with the Warrens. I had my first empathic experience on a case in Vermont that I'm actually writing about that changed my life forever. And I guess we can start there. I always wanted to be able to have proof that our consciousness survives the body. And I never understood as a young man why we weren't able to discern these things. But the secret is the pineal gland, all right? And the physical eyes can only perceive less than 1% of the matter, space, and energy that's around us, which is visible light. The electromagnetic spectrum is massive, but we can only see the tiniest fraction, which is visible light. So we, as human beings, our human perception, the body's perception ability, is only able to see 1% of what's around us. And so scientists say that if I can't see it, it doesn't exist, is completely ludicrous. So the same goes with our ability to hear specific frequencies and so forth. We have a very limited system in our body that's actually been shunted eons ago. But the secret is the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is the grain of rice sized or the pea-sized pine cone shaped gland in the center of the left and right hemispheres of our brain. It's photosensitive. It's got rods and cones, just like our physical eyes do. That is how you dream at night when you're in a pitch black room and your eyelids are closed and you have full multicolor dream experiences. I don't know if anybody's ever thought about that before, but that's exactly why we are able to perceive things. And the interesting thing is that when our bodies rest, our consciousness moves on. It's the body that requires rest. It's not our conscious awareness. So when the body is sleeping and recovering and rejuvenating and repairing itself, our consciousness is continuing on. And when it moves on outside of the third dimension, there's no time. So we can literally be gone for an entire lifetime period of time and come back 4 to 6 to 8 hours later, and we're completely exhausted when we wake up, even though we've slept for 6 or 8 hours, which doesn't make sense why we'd be so tired. But it's because our consciousness needed a break. But we're able to go on into these various dimensions and pick up and receive certain information. And when we come back and lower our vibration back into this third dimensional form, we're only able to pick up bits and pieces or fragments of these experiences, and we call them dreams. But we're only able to perceive just a fragmented, scattered bit of information that doesn't make sense in many cases. Other times we're able to have completely mind-blowing visions and able to memorize everything and to remember everything, and that's when you know you really had a profound experience. But back to the pineal gland, is I always wanted to be able to see a ghost. In this case in Vermont that I was on with the Warrens, which we almost didn't even make it to, and because there's just no time to get into that, but we got to this house where a woman had perished on the property. She was on the way to go give birth. She was in a horse and carriage, wagon, being rushed to the manor house to give birth. The midwife was waiting for her, but in their haste to get to the midwife, a wheel went off the edge of this embankment, and the wagon flipped, and the body, the mother's body was crushed, as was the baby's body. But because her last conscious thought was get to the house to deliver the baby, that's where she went. And in many cases, that's true. So our last thoughts before the body perishes is often very powerful as far as where we end up going and what we end up doing. But so there she remained on property in the house in incredible duress, wondering, where's my baby? Where's my baby? Because there she was just ready to go deliver her beautiful baby, and the next she's in a spirit body with no baby to be found. So when we went up there, the family that was experiencing everything, this is back in 1990, November, fled the house because there were so many things going on. There were both human and inhuman spirits there. But we were all initiating contact in the huge dining room, and the table was literally, there's all kinds of feedback going on, I don't know. But
were you table tipping? Is that what it was?
It wasn't tipping, it was bouncing. It was literally this massive Amish table, farm table, with about 12 of us around it with our arms on it. And the thing was literally bouncing up and down like crazy. And Lorraine was seeing this man come in with a top hat on, the spirit of a man and a woman and all these other people. And our friend Andy, the other investigator, who I'm friends with still to this day, who's actually a very, very powerful psychic, was seeing them. And I said, I want to see, and all of a sudden my jaw dropped and tears just streamed out of my eyes. And I go, Lorraine, the sadness. In fact, I have the audio tape, I should play it. But it's, that was my first powerful empathic experience. And that changed my life forever, because I was picking up her grief and her sadness. Can you imagine losing your child and as you're ready to go give birth and you have no idea what happened to it? So, again, there is no time or space outside of the third dimension. So to her, it just happened. It's not like she's been wailing in agony for the last, 125 years. To her, it just happened. Where's my baby? Where's my baby? And that I was completely overcome by that grief. And that changed my life forever, because it made me really feel for these people who vacated their physical bodies, who are now in between the third and fourth dimension, or are in the fourth, and don't know what to do with themselves. And because we're never taught what's going to happen when we leave the body, or what to expect, or what to do and what not to do. So actually, that was the reason I wrote the third book that I published, called Our Journey Home: The Handbook for the Transition. It just came out, not this Christmas, but the previous Christmas. And it's meant for everybody, to help them understand what's going to happen when we vacate the body, either slowly or rapidly. And it's meant for hospice, people in hospice and their loved ones, and the doctors and the nurses and everybody. So that's the culmination of all my life's work, honestly. Our Journey Home: The Handbook for the Transition. It's available on Amazon. It's on my website, Macleod Metaphysics, MCLEOD Metaphysics, METAPHYSICS.com, with all the information that you need. But that's the most powerful, potent book for everybody to read, because it explains what's going to happen. But and again, it's the culmination of all my experience with the Warrens, all of my experience branching off through all these years. I just turned 50 last October, so getting up there. But I look, of course, 35. But the information is just so astounding. But it changed my life, and it made me really want to help these people. So I hate the term ghost hunting, because we don't hunt humans. So why are we hunting ghosts? And if we can only see less than 1% of what's around us here in the third dimension, we're not hunting anybody. In fact, they're probably looking at us and saying, what are these clowns doing? Because it's like looking at a giant, if you want to use an analogy of seeing 1% of what's around us, picture yourself in a massive warehouse where you can't see the walls to either side of you or the ceiling. And all you have is a little laser pointer. And you're shining a tiny little dot on the wall. That's the percentage of really what we're able to perceive as human beings. And we are surrounded by energies and frequencies and spirits and entities and consciousness and awareness, and we're completely oblivious to it, because we're inside this little this electromagnetic biological spacesuit that's insulated. And we're insulated from each other because we're experiencing the illusion that we're separate from one another, we're separate from our creator, that we're just individuals, running around like ants. And,
so what do you
Good.
So what do you think about people who are supposedly are ghost hunting? You get all these teams. It's so popular now that,
That's
it's...
that's the reason I wrote Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare, because I was never going to talk about this case. It was the most horrific, fascinating, terrifying experience that I've ever experienced as an investigator. It happened in 1993, so it was just 3 short years after I started working with the Warrens. But the family wanted no recognition whatsoever, as is the case with most of these really serious demonic cases. They don't want recognition. They don't want people driving by their house all hours of the day. They don't want everybody in their town looking at them, either pitying them or giving them any number of different looks and emotions. They don't want to ruin their kids' lives. They don't want to ruin their careers. And as all happened with the Smurl case, in the case that became known as the Haunted, which was the case from Pennsylvania that the Warrens investigated and wrote about, that family was destroyed publicly because they went public because they wanted people to know what happened to them. So this case that happened in Connecticut that I wrote about, I have a bachelor's in English creative writing. If you pull up on Amazon right now, those of you who are listening, if you're a multitasker like I am, you can pull up Dark Siege, Darksiege. I have phenomenal reviews. I think I have like close to 180 reviews, and only about 2% of people actually leave reviews. I've sold thousands of copies of these books. But I've recreated this case in a true crime novel, Stephen King-esque horror fiction format, like you're reading a Stephen King book. I wrote myself in as myself when I arrived there as a character, and I recreated this case from the very beginning when the mother union, which is country, and Warren has seen the white lady and filmed all the way up until, and I don't want to spoil the story, but it was absolutely devastating what happened to this family. We had clergy involved, we had a bishop involved, and I wrote about, I was never going to talk about it because all of my experiences were for me. I wanted to know what happens when we leave the body and who we are and what we're doing here and where we're going. But when in 2012, when I first logged onto Facebook and I saw all of these groups of people, XYZ Paranormal, with their sunglasses on and their T-shirts and their baseball hats with their folded arms, presenting themselves like they're the premier paranormal investigation group in the country. And I would learn that so many of them were doing things that were completely outrageous, specifically using Ouija boards inside people's homes. I consulted with some of the original Warren investigators who are, again, very quiet people who aren't out to make a name for themselves, because we were all very serious about this, as were the Warrens. And I said, can you believe this stuff? So I decided, I talked to the family, I said, I need to release this case to warn people, specifically paranormal groups, but secondly, and really most importantly, the families and the children who would endure these horrors from the use of Ouija boards, which is, like Ed Warren has always said, is the #1 cause of all demonic cases, because you're using it and you're using I understand why they work now, which is another reason why I wrote the book. So what I did with this book is I recreated this case, and it's 467 pages, but it's the most common comments where I could not put this book down once I picked it up, but I couldn't read it at night because it was so terrifying.
Wow.
It is absolutely horrifying what happens to this family. And it's a gradual build, but then it just is unbelievable what happened to them. But it's the chapter-by-chapter analysis at the end, which is something I did completely differently than anybody else.
Is this family free now, Jason?
Yes.
Is it free from all this stuff now?
It is, but they came back after them a second time. This happened just before October in 93.
Okay.
And we cleared everything away. The exorcism was successful. It was an actual exorcism, horrific exorcism. And 2 months later, they came right back after the family for payback. But they went after instead of the family, they went after the bishop first, the demonologist, and the psychic. Then they tried to get back into the house. And they went after the family's friends. They went after the next door neighbor's dog. They went after the boyfriends. They went after sexual attacks on two of the teenagers, incubus and succubus attacks.
Wow.
In fact, I mentioned, I sent volume 2 to Bishop James Long in Kentucky because I'm a friend of his. And I said, I'm hesitant to release this in such graphic detail about these sexual attacks. And he read the whole thing and he said, you have to release this exactly as it is written because it is so real. It's very rare, but it's so real. People need to know what happens. So I didn't pull any punches in this. I use my creative writing skills. I write very cinematically, so you can literally see what's going on through the way I've created these books. But it's the chapter by chapter analysis in the final 100 pages of each novel. There's 2 books in this series: Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare; Dark Siege 2, The Nightmare Returns. And I had to separate them because the first book is written specifically for young teenagers, for house moms, for paranormal researchers, to help them understand the dangers involved in getting involved in this type of work in the first place.
What's the dangers involved for our listeners?
Ed told me, he says, when you open the door and you start down this path, you are marked. Because you're standing against these forces, these preternatural forces that have never walked the earth in human form, that have never taken a human form. In other words, who have existed for eons, who are outside of the range of human perception, who, when you take a stand against the devil, right, you are marking yourself. And they don't have to come after you right away. They can come after you when you're infirm in your old years, or when you're sick, or when you're debilitated emotionally or mentally, if you're questioning your spirituality. We have all these defensive fields, which are our subtle fields, which again are invisible, but they're real, and they're the things that protect us from these forces. But Lorraine asked me three very pointed questions. The first time she met me, when I went to their house for their Monday night meeting for their going over the cases that were going on. And again, that was a huge synchronicity, which is explained in detail in my book. But when we have time in another segment, I can go into that, or we can do it tonight, whatever. I'm not sure how much time we have. But she said, how strong is your faith, honey, was the first thing. Very first question, without asking me anything else. And I said, well, I have immense faith. I believe that I and the Father are one, and that I am perfectly connected to my Creator at all times and everything. And she smiled and she nodded. She's psychic. She's a medium. You can't lie to the woman. And the second question was, why do you want to get involved in work of this nature? This nature is a very, very telling statement or word choice. And I said, I read The Demonologist when I was a senior in high school. I was very concerned for the children and for the families involved that were experiencing these absolutely awful nightmares. And she said, so it's a calling then, right? And I said, I believe it is. You know, I want to experience these things. I want to add them to my knowledge base, and I want to be able to help, and I'm willing to help, you know, at great cost, even to myself, because I always thought that was my purpose. And none of the people that were involved working with the Warrens, we had about a dozen investigators, very serious people, working out of the kindness and goodness of their hearts. In fact, we paid like a weekly small collection or, you know, donation to the Warrens, you know, to have the privilege of experiencing these things and to be able to work with them. We didn't make any money. In fact, we gave of our time and our energy and put ourselves on the line just to help these families. So when I talk about, and that's another reason, the primary reason I wrote about this book is because to be able to have worked with these incredible people who were the people that started this whole craze. None of these shows would exist right now, and none of these groups would exist right now if it weren't for Ed and Lorraine Warren. And that's a fact. And so many people knock them down and claim that they're frauds or they're con artists or they're money hungry or all these things. I've worked with them side by side, and I've never witnessed that. And I have two other people that I've worked with the Warrens who worked there long before I have. And we've talked on many occasions. In fact, we talked weekly on Facebook and Messenger, discussing what in the world is going on in this this avenue of investigation, and the people that are out there sticking their noses into things that they should not be sticking their noses into. It sounds like that's not a nice way to put it. Delving into things that they really do not understand at all. Not knowing who to contact should they encounter something that is well beyond their ability to cope with. Most of these people do not have any clue, I'm sorry to tell you, what they're getting involved in or what to do about it. They want to get a photograph, or they want to get an EVP so they can get on television, they get on the radio. Andy, or Drew, is an incredible psychic who worked with the Warrens. He's the one I alluded to earlier. He was one of the original people that was asked to be on the original Ghost Hunter show. And he said, it is scripted tabloid television, and I want nothing to do with it. I'm not going to ruin my name and reputation. And he doesn't have a name and reputation because he's not billing himself as the guru of paranormal investigation. These people, including myself, for many years, decades, didn't have any interest in getting involved in being in the limelight. And now that's all people care about. So I wrote about this book, about this case, with the family's permission, changed their names, of course, to warn these paranormal investigators what they're going to get involved in and what they could potentially encounter, and they better know how to deal with it. And if they don't, then they better not get involved in the first place. Because if you go to somebody's home and you put them in danger because you're provoking things, using religious provocation, or you're saying the wrong things, you're doing the wrong things, there's any number of things you can do incorrectly that can put everybody in immediate danger. It's absolutely a travesty, and especially the ones that are out there using Ouija boards in people's homes. And Ouija boards are just a tool, just like anything else. Well, if that's what your belief system is, I'm sorry to say that just because you believe something to be a certain way, it's not the way it is. So let's talk about consciousness, which is again, the whole reason I got involved in this, and what people just can't understand. And it's like explaining to a fish what outer space is. It's just something completely foreign to them. And it sounds insulting, it sounds demeaning, but it is not. And it's just a fact. Unless you have the conscious awareness to know what you're dealing with and why these things are happening, there's no reason you should be investigating it. People who are investigating the paranormal don't even know what their lives are all about. They don't know where they're from, why they're here, what their purpose is, where they're going afterwards, and what it all means. So that is you can't investigate an entity, a field of conscious awareness that is vibrating completely outside of your range of perception, outside of even this third dimension. And now, what is a dimension? Most people don't even know that. A dimension is simply a vibratory rate. It's a level of awareness and level of consciousness, and it's the associated vibration. So if you are a lower third dimensional or a mid or even higher third dimensional consciousness, you're just the average guy walking around or gal walking around who just believes that, that's all there is. This is all there is. If I can't see what's the only thing that's real is what I can see and perceive and hear and touch and believe, and that's that, right? Subtle fields don't exist. Electromagnetic energies or auras don't exist. Demons don't exist. Ghosts don't really exist. Yet they're out there calling themselves a paranormal investigator, and then they're out running a haunted house. Like all these inns and all these different institutions and insane asylums and places like that.
They make it historical sites.
All they care about is the turnstile, right? Charging for ghost hunts, letting people go in there and get their thrills and try to maybe hear something or experience something. It's a joke, right? After my empathic experience, all I wanted to do was help these people find peace and cross over, go home to our Creator, go home to Source, cross over, go to heaven, if you want to call it that. It's all vibration. And I'll go into any number of these places that are considered to be haunted, and I'll clear the whole place out. Now, granted, there are sometimes people who don't want to leave because they don't know what to expect. They're fearful of the unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like Ed always said, he said, if a bomb went off in this building or the roof collapsed, a good number of people wouldn't even know they've died because we're still fully conscious. We can hear and see and touch, or we can hear and see and sense what's going around us. We can't interact with the third dimension anymore because we're vibrating outside of that dense reality. So your hand will pass right through the table, you'll walk right through the wall, you'll walk through a lamp, and you'll affect the electric circuit within the lamp and cause it to turn on or turn off. And the same thing with the radio. There's all, I talk about this in the Our Journey Home book to prepare people for what to expect.
It's true. And
it's totally true.
It's true, because the last thing that goes when a person is already in the last stages of death is their hearing. It really does. They can hear everything that's going on.
And you'll be able to see things, right? You'll see your loved ones coming for you. You'll see your guides waiting for you. You'll see somebody maybe you don't even know who will be standing there in the corner waiting patiently for the time that you're actually going to vacate the body for the final time. You'll slip in and out of the body. If you're blessed to go slowly without a great deal of pain, you'll slip in and out of the body multiple times before you actually finally do it for the final time.
Exactly.
And when you're out of the body, the near-death experiencers, for instance, right? When you vacate the physical form, you're able to see and perceive colors that you can't even describe when you come back into the body. Why? Because the body is only able to perceive 1% of what's around us, which is visible light. It's visible light because it's all we can see. Yet beyond the constraints of the body, you'll see colors you can't even describe. You'll see entities, you'll see beings, you'll see geometric patterns, sacred geometry, you'll hear things, you'll hear voices, you'll hear music, you'll experience things, you'll feel loved like you can't even describe, the whole gambit. And people come back into their bodies and their doctors think it's just a medication or the result of a recent procedure they've had, or they're losing their minds, or they get dementia or Alzheimer's, or they're making it up. Nobody else can understand. And until you expand your awareness, like I have, and like so many others have, outside of this third dimensional paradigm that we're in, you can't understand the information that's being relayed because you haven't had the same experience. And the soul seeks experience. The soul knows all there is to know, but to truly know, you have to experience it, right? So this gets into specific lifetimes that we choose to have. So here's the gist, right? The gist is, and this is the greatest news for everybody, and this is the most wonderful thing to hear, because the greatest reality is that we are fields of eternal, immortal awareness who are individuations of the totality of the Creator. We're sparks cast off from the light of the sun. If you want to use God as an analogy of God being this great central sun in the great center of the universe, and we are individual sparks cast off from the sun, created with a purpose, absolutely created because the Creator created us the way we are. But we exist on all dimensions, all 12 dimensions, and there's probably many more, simultaneously. And we take a human form or whatever form throughout the universe through which we get to interact in any of those specific dimensions. So us here in the third dimension, we are completely in a dense environment that is cut off from our higher awareness. We're cut off from our Creator. We're cut off from our spirit guides. We're cut off from the angelic realm. We believe, and it's all basically, we're in a insulated spacesuit, and we are unable to perceive the 99% of the things that are around us that we're meant to perceive, but we don't. And when we vacate this physical body, it's like taking off a deep sea diving helmet. I don't know if you know about those old helmets where they had the big brass helmet that you put on with a little cage in the front, and you have this little visor, and that's all you can see through. That's what it's going to be like when you leave your body, and taking that helmet off and going, thank God, right?
What a relief.
Things around it. And the people, the people are free of their pain and their disease and their illness and their foggy brain and their drama of their lives. They're just free of all that. Like you're taking off a costume and that you're in a great play playing your role, and the curtain closes and you whip the costume off and you go, oh, I can go live my normal life now. And it's such a relief for everybody. And but people get stuck and stranded because they don't know what to do. Nobody's been taught what to do. Even religions don't tell you what to do. Even the 2,800 different sects of Christianity don't even tell you what to do. None of that is available for anybody. All right. Oh, you're going to go to sleep until Christ comes. Well, the Warrens were very devout Catholics. Well, Lorraine, I say was. Ed's no longer with us, but Lorraine is. But Ed said, they're devout Catholics, but what we've been taught about what happens when the physical body dies just is not true. What's in the Bible about what happens when the physical body dies is completely wrong. We don't go to sleep and sleep until Christ returns, unless you look at it like you are assuming Christ's consciousness when you vacate the body. Consciousness is a level of vibration. You're leaving the third dimension, you're going on into the different higher dimensions. There's no hell, right?
Exactly, I was going to get that.
Hell is a state of being where you believe that you're separate from God, that you can never reconnect, that you're not worthy of God's grace or God's company. But the fact of the matter is we are all goddesses and gods in the making, because we're all created from the Creator. The cast-off cell that divides from a cell that divides, the divided cell always becomes like the host cell, right? And a newborn baby becomes an adult version of the parent. We are all evolving to become something so far greater than we can ever even imagine in our third dimensional lives. But when we vacate the body, we reconnect with our highest awareness, and we connect with the higher dimensional versions of ourselves, which is something it's really interesting to comprehend. The sky is the limit. We can do anything at that point.
Isn't it funny in planet Earth, in Christianity, it says that if you don't believe in Christ or you don't believe in God, you're going to go to hell, and you get segregated because you're not one of them. You're being programmed to think that it's like a hierarchy. Your belief system is, and you're being judged in how you believe and what you accept in your life. Where we're all Christ consciousness. We're all part of one.
And he came here. First of all, his name isn't even Jesus, it's Yeshua. And he came here to awaken humanity. He came here and taught his disciples, get out of the boat. You can walk on water too. What? Oh, not me. Not me. I'm little old me. I'm telling you, you can walk on water. Get out of the boat and walk on water. These things and more ye shall do also. Right? With regard to healing the sick. With regard to performing miracles. You can't do it in third dimensional consciousness because you're just not connected. He's coming from sixth dimension and above, sixth dimensional consciousness and above. But he taught us that these things and more ye shall do also. If you cannot believe in yourselves, then believe in me. I am the way. Follow my lead, right? And instead, he came here to flip the tables and the money changers. He came here to end the archontic Babylonian debt slavery money system that still binds everybody together today in this third dimension, which is actually on its way out.
It's true.
And he came here to teach us all how we're all connected, to love one another, right? And don't judge one another. And the whole history was completely perverted. And in fact, this just came out. There's an Ethiopian version of the Bible written in a language that is ancient, that has, I think, 14 more books. It's even more expansive than the Naga Hamadi scriptures. If you want to read, if anybody here is a devout Christian, if you want to read the adult version of the children's allegory version, which is the King James version and all the others, go and buy a copy of the Naga Hamadi scriptures, Naghammadi scriptures. And they were discovered in the Naga Hamadi region, buried in jars, and it is mind-blowing about the history of creation and the names of the powers and the principalities and the creation of mankind, not the children's version which you get in the Holy Bible, because people couldn't even understand it. Can you imagine trying to talk about these things 2,000 years ago? It wouldn't happen. People are now able to comprehend what's going on, but it'll blow you away, and you'll think, what in the world have I been believing, when there's so much more to the story. And there's more than that. But we can only perceive and understand so much here in this third dimensional form. And it's all density, it's all vibration. Everything is vibration. So the other key is all of these negative entities, these negative human entities, these parasitic entities, these demonic entities, the hierarchy with these demonic forces and so forth, the fallen angels, all these things, Satan, all that stuff is all about fear and division, keeping you believing that you're less than you are, that you're not connected to the Creator, that you're a worthless sinner, that you're going to go burn in hell for any decision you make, yet God forgives anybody for anything. And the Creator is life itself. The Creator is the quantum field. And I'm sorry, but Star Wars is a total great analogy about the Force. It is the Force that binds us and connects us to each other. It holds the universe together. It is life. And we are part of that force. We are part of the Creator, and we can never not be part of the Creator, no matter how dark and diabolical we think we are, or the mistakes that we've made, or the crimes that we've committed. It can all change because you can all turn back toward the light and the goodness. So these dark forces want nothing to do but isolate you, terrorize you, cause you to kill yourself, cause you to hurt yourself. But most importantly, the key is emit fear, and hopelessness and despair and darkness. And they feast on it, right?
Can I ask you, Jason, why is it that when we go back to the Dark Siege, why is it this particular family, the Connecticut family's nightmare, were they chosen to experience that?
No.
Okay.
The girl, I call it the fear buffet, right? Because they feast on it. But this was a happenstance encounter driving by one of the most haunted cemeteries in the country on a stormy afternoon with electrical activity going on in the air, which is always going to increase what's going on. The mother was an artist, which makes her a natural sensitive. Ed Warren always said, I've never met any artist who wasn't psychic, because we're all downloading that creativity from the universe. The creativity. And that the daughter, because that's the daughter of this sensitive, was sensitive herself, but she was actually very psychic. The mother planted the seed in her head, be very careful, maybe we'll see a ghost. We wouldn't want it to follow us home, would we? Instantly, the girl's cringing in the back seat as the thunder's booming, saying, that's scary, stop it. But then she's looking for it. She's looking in the cemetery. And there just so happened to be a very negative, earthbound human spirit, but he was very negative, that she was able to discern. And it knew that she could discern him. And I'll give you an example of myself, how it happened to me the first time. It happened in Vermont with this case. The reason I was so overcome with this woman and her emotions is because I made a connection with her, a conscious connection with her in the field where the accident happened. I actually invited her. I felt that she was standing behind me as everybody else was walking toward the house. We're in this huge cornfield. It's all cut down. But I turned around. I just felt like she was behind me, and I said, come back to the house with us. I couldn't see her, but I could feel that she was there watching. And to her, she didn't know I couldn't see her, but I'm turning around in her general direction saying, come on back to the house. Oh, he can see me, right? Or I made a connection with this guy. He can help me, right? Mm-hmm. That's how I made a connection with her. So it didn't happen until an hour or two later inside the house as the chaos is starting to happen, where she was able to interact with me, probably because I was a bit freaked out that the table was bouncing all over the place. My subtle fields collapsed a bit, right? Fear will do that. And she was able to make this frequency bridge. It's all frequency with me, where I was able to totally perceive her emotions. Maybe she moved right in, didn't possess me, but she interacted with me. It's called cohabitation. That's another fascinating field of study, which is not quite possession, but it's being affected by the emotions and thoughts of another discarnate intelligence. In fact, there's a phenomenal book written about that, which I mentioned in the end of my book. But Kelly, the little 6-year-old girl, connected with this spirit. She saw it walking right toward her, this gray, shadowy form. In fact, I took a photograph of him exactly where she saw him, because I went back there and she pointed out, this is where I saw him, right there. And I didn't see anybody in the camera lens. I didn't sense anybody. But right there on the film, there he is, standing right behind the tombstone, this gray, shadowy, man-shaped form. Clear as day, but that's what she saw. So I use that when I do my paranormal conventions and stuff. I set up this great display table. I'm there to reach out to kids, especially, and all the people interested in the paranormal about, that's why I wrote this book. So it came right through the tombstone, right through the fence, right up to the back of the car as the car was speeding away, and scared the hell out of her, where the mom cut the wheel and almost crashed because of the slick, wet leaves and everything. But it followed them home. And it was a 16-year-old brother and his 2 best friends the mother didn't believe a word of it until she experienced it the next morning in the kitchen. After everybody left for school and work, she saw this form walk right through the washing machine and right through her body, and she felt a chill like you can't even believe. And then she couldn't confide in anybody. This is a classic case of how everything went wrong, because nobody confided in each other. Nobody told each other what was going on. She fled, basically left the house and went to go talk with her friend to try to make sense of what was going on. But the 16-year-old brother, Tyler, and his 2 best friends got off the school bus that Friday afternoon, went inside the house, and spotted this very form walking on the outside perimeter of the property. And they went out to confront him, thinking it was somebody trespassing on their property. But it turned out to be that nobody was there. There were no footprints in the snow. It was a light snowfall that late October. It was a early winter. But they turned back and saw the sliding door close on them. And it was literally playing tricks with them. So they went inside. The door was locked. One of the guys tried the door, and then Tyler, who actually lived there, went to try it, and it slid right open. So he instantly is accusing one of his 2 best friends of playing tricks on him and causing things to escalate. Right. But that's why these things happen. They try to turn everybody against each other, and so they experienced this form inside the house. A shaker. There's a metal cup with stirrer sticks on the little bar that was in the living room, and it started to rattle, and it literally moved right off the bar and went onto the ground and spilled all the stirrer sticks. Well, that sent them running out of the house, terrified. They decided they'd go get a Ouija board to communicate with him. That was the biggest mistake they made, because if all we had to deal with was this very negative man who had come to the house because he thought that he could interact with Kelly and share his story or have some kind of interaction, versus being completely alone and isolated and unable to interact with anybody because nobody could perceive him, it would have been easy to talk to him and convince him, listen, it's time to move on. The third dimension has no place for you anymore. It's time to move on and return home to your creator, and there's no reason to fear it. You can go in peace, and we call for the archangels to come and take them away, and most times they go because they didn't know what to do with themselves. You don't know what to do with yourself. So the Ouija board was the worst mistake they could have made, because then they issued all the wrong challenges, right? They opened, and the reason these Ouija boards work is, if anybody's wondering, is your intention is everything, right? Your intention is the most important factor in anything. It's the most important factor in any crime that you commit. So it's the most important thing related to any action that you take. If your intention is to reach out to your guides or to your grandmother or to somebody that, without harming anybody, and only good people are allowed to come in and talk with you, and you declare that, that's a big statement, and that's a big intention, and it's a big difference compared to, trying to summon a demon on purpose, or try to talk to dark forces, or try to summon Satan by name, or any of these entities, right, that by name, right, the archangels, the fallen angels, and so forth. But they didn't intend to do anything besides get answers about why this guy was in the house looking, because it announced it's after Kelly. It spelled out Kelly. And then Tyler went berserk and said, just screaming at her, saying, "You going after a little girl and stuff? Why don't you go after me, huh?" That type of stuff, right? Well, he's opening the doorway, not to the guy that's in the house. It's like taking a loudspeaker, a bullhorn. You know what a bullhorn is? Where you pull the trigger and it broadcasts your voice, right?
Yes.
It's like saying, "Come mess with my life. Are there any spirits here?" Well, where's here defined? In this house, in this living room, on this property, in this town, state, country, continent, planet, universe, galaxy, dimension. Where? You didn't quantify where or identify where here is. Are there any spirits who wish to communicate with me? Oh, you can bet your butt they're out there wanting to experience and communicate with you, because there are forces out there that are dark, that have turned away from the goodness that they once were. They're lost, and they're full of hatred and bile and negativity and malice, and they'll do anything they can to try to work their way into your life because they need your permission. Ed said God protected his creation, but if the creation decides to pull the veil back and challenge the forces that they're supposed to be protected from, then that's their own free will. And these people just don't understand, right? So, and here's another thing. Using a Ouija board, you think, oh, it's just a tool. Well, you're placing your hands on the planchette. You're using it as a tool to initiate communication. Now, you're placing your hands on the planchette. So are you giving them permission to enter your body and use your hands to move the planchette through your intentions? Or are you visualizing them on the other side of the board with their spectral hands on the other side of the planchette, moving it with you? Which one is it? Either way, you're evoking them to come into your property, into your house, and to sit on the other side of you and move the planchette so you can see it move, because that's the only thing you can see is the visible light version of the planchette. Or you're invoking them by inviting them into your body to use your actual arms and move the planchette. So which one is it? They're both very dangerous. The one where you're inviting them into your body is 10 times more dangerous because you're inviting them into your fields, which most people don't even believe exists in the first place. But the Warrens always insisted nobody can drink or be under any kind of medications or any of those things when they're investigating homes on their behalf and with them, because you're putting everybody else in danger, and especially yourself. So you're going into a location that's definitely haunted, where people are experiencing things that are absolutely out of this world, because they are, and you're going in there and in any way compromised, you are that much more vulnerable, right? So you have your mental field, which is your state of mind. Are you, sane, or are you going crazy? If you're crazy, then you have no mental field. If you are completely sane and stable, you have a huge mental defense. Do you have any spirituality? How strong is your faith, honey? If you don't have a really solid strength, faith and knowledge that you are connected to your creator and you are protected and you can call upon him absolutely, and they'll be there before you even finish your sentence, then your spiritual body is completely collapsed. You have no defense there. If you're emotionally distressed about a breakup or about a health situation or any number of things, or if you're just completely freaked out about even stepping foot into a property, you have no mental defense or emotional defense. All of these things are very, very important, and they're all layers. It's like layers of an onion. And when you go into these houses, or when these things happen, or when these entities came into the McLaughlin house, I use the McLaughlin name, they came right in that very evening, 8 different demonic entities, announcing their arrival, ringing the doorbell one after the other, as Tyler and his friends are looking out the window up in the upstairs bedroom, downstairs, wondering who the hell's ringing the doorbell. There's nobody out there that they can see, because they can only see 1%, right? But they're announcing their doorbell. Here we are. You invited us in. Here we come. And not literally like that, but I mean, if that's what happened with the doorbell ringing. But the older sister, Sarah, didn't believe a word of it until she experienced things happen the very same evening. So the kids didn't want to tell the parents they used the Ouija board. The mom didn't want to tell her husband, who was a real estate broker, who was totally alpha male, didn't believe in any of this stuff. The mother Kelly didn't want to tell anybody that she was interacting with this spirit, whose name was Brock. because she thought it was completely natural, because it is, to interact with discarnate forms, because that's when you're a kid, your pineal gland's working. Oh, this is what we talked about before. The reason we stop seeing things, kids have imaginary playmates. Kids see spirits, kids see energies, they're happy, they're giggling, they think everything is just a great, joyous adventure, because it is, because they're connected to all these higher frequencies and they can see things and perceive things that we can't.
I was one of those
Adults
kids.
can't.
Yes,
All right?
I was one of those
and
kids.
A lot of people listening to this will understand that. But it's all because of the pineal gland. It's fully functional, but they being the powers that be, and soon powers that were, because they're all being booted, put fluoride in the water and in the toothpaste to calcify your pineal gland. It'll literally turn this vibrating gland in the center of your mind, which is your sixth sense, or your higher gateway to your higher self, your third eye, right? It's an eye because it can see. You see things with it. It'll literally turn that pineal gland to stone, and you'll be shut off completely from the things that we should have access to. There's a way to decalcify it. You can just Google it. But David Wilcock talks about that too. It's about using specific fish oils. But we're shut off when our pineal gland calcifies and we can't detect anything. But that's the seat of the soul. It's the third eye. It's the Stargate. It's the wormhole. It's all these things that are depicted in ancient mythology. The birdmen, the Sumerian birdmen holding the pine cone. All right, the pine cones in the Vatican. They all know about it. It's occult. So what is occult? Occult just means hidden. It's secret knowledge that is hidden away from the masses. But that secret knowledge is this esoteric information that people aren't allowed access to. It's all locked away because they can't have the masses understanding higher consciousness, and that they don't need government and religions and education and all this stuff to keep them indoctrinated. That's the thing, right? Is my dad tried to drag me to church when I was a little boy by my earlobe, and I said, Dad, it means more to God. I used the term God then, to sit on a hilltop and meditate on Him. And again, there's no gender in the universal field, but we use those terms because that's what we've been programmed to believe, is this bearded man and sitting on a throne in a different place who's looking down on us, and who loves us unconditionally and will forgive us for anything, but will throw us into the lake of fire for eternity if we upset Him. And it's such baloney what we've been taught, but we are so much more powerful than we ever gave ourselves credit for. But the thing is consciousness. If you don't understand things, don't go. If you don't understand yourself, first of all, and that you and your levels of protection and your level in your power, you don't understand the entities that you could be interacting with. My God, it's you're not even putting on a hard hat. Construction workers, they know they're going into a danger zone. You put on a hard hat. So everybody talking about, I white lighted myself and I'm fully protected, that doesn't do it.
I know, that's what everybody said. Oh, go and love and light. Go ask for God to go and protect you, kind of thing,
Well, love is the key, right? Love is one of the highest vibrations there are, under compassion. Heart-centered compassion. If you're a heart-centered, compassionate individual, which I am, and I just get frustrated with people in this topic. If you're a heart-centered, compassionate individual, right, meaning you understand that we're all individuations of the totality of Creator, we're all one. Anything I do to you, I do to myself, because if I steal from you, it's telling the universe or God or Creator that I can't have whatever it is that I want. I can't manifest it myself, and it's also okay to be stolen from. You have to look at it like that, right? Okay. If I harm somebody else, it's telling the universe I deserve to be harmed myself, right? Things like that. But I can't remember where I was going with that. But darn, I lost my train of thought. But you just have to know who you are and what you're not, right? And what you're dealing with, and love and compassion. So if you're a heart-centered, compassionate individual, by your very polarity, right, like a magnet, the plus side and the negative side of a magnet. You put them together on the same pole or at the opposite poles, you're either going to repel or you're going to attract. So if you're heart-centered, compassionate, you're kind and loving, you're vibrant, you're joyful, you're energetic, you look great, you feel great, you have a huge auric field which extends well beyond the reach of our extended arms, and our heart field extends well beyond that. The Institute for Heart Math has proven the size of the field of our heart is incredible, right? And we'll get back to the whole haunted museum because this is going to tie right in before we go. How much time do we have?
We probably got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're a heart-centered individual and you have a positive energy field, you're going to repel negative entities and negative energies. You're going to attract goodness and kindness and things that are like your field, right?
Right.
And if you're negative and nasty and cruel and judgmental and egoic and hateful and scornful and vengeful and deceitful and all that stuff, you look like crap in many cases. Your energy's terrible. You're attracting all these negative emotions and negative entities and negative things into your life, and it's a big downward spiral. Okay? So we have a huge electromagnetic field in many cases. And if we don't have healthy emotions, or if we don't have a healthy mental state or a powerful spiritual state, then all those fields are much more degraded and much more porous, right? And they have holes in them, and there's energy breaches in them, and energy leaks. Again, we can't see it, but it's true. Kirlian photography proves there's an electromagnetic nature to our bodies and to all life. You'll see it in the cross-section of an apple filmed with Kirlian photography. It's vibrant packet of energy. So when you eat an apple, you're eating a living life force versus a slab of meat, right, which has very little energy left depending on how long it's been sitting there, and it's loaded with all the negative information related to its slaughter and all the pain and so forth, and you're ingesting that into your field. That's a whole other topic. So these haunted museums, right, I wrote about this in the analysis section of Dark Siege 2, The Nightmare Returns, because one of the demonologists that was involved in this case, it wasn't Ed, but he had his little museum going himself. And when I was in Ed's museum, the Occult museum in his house, I bumped my head. As one of his investigators, I bumped my head, because I'm 6'7", on one of the most dangerous pieces that were in the entire museum, hanging from the ceiling on fish wire. It was a dragon sculpture. And it said, if you touch anything, tell me immediately. And I told him I touched it. And he says, you touched one of the worst things you could possibly touch other than Annabelle sitting there in the case, which is the real Annabelle, the Raggedy Ann doll. And I got upset. I said, why is this even here that I can interact with it? Why? If this is so dangerous, why are these people putting these haunted objects, if they are truly haunted or negatively charged or have negative attachments and so forth, taking these things out of the public arena, locking them away in a building somewhere, and then turning that building into a museum where innocent people have not a clue what they're going to be interacting with, can walk down in between these aisles of tables. Keep in mind their electromagnetic field is either extending well beyond the range of their extended arms. Mm-hmm. For me, that's huge, right? Because I have huge wingspan. Or they're collapsed and they're porous and all that stuff, and they're have the potential to interact with any of these negative entities or forces and so forth that are actually haunting the item in the first place. It is dangerous, it is stupid, and the people that are opening these museums should be liable commercially for any harm that comes to any of these people. It is ridiculous, right? And I told Ed that, and I blast anybody who has the audacity to think that, because they don't know it, right? They don't really know what's going on. Quantum physics has proven that nothing is solid, right? Everything is electromagnetic state. Everything is vibration and frequency. So right. we are frequency. The object is a packet of information. It's a quantum field itself. There's another field of energy that's surrounding it, because it could be a doll that some child cherished, right, and talked to it and played with it. That creates a thought form, right? And then that can create it could be something that's very negative. It could be an idol. For instance, this huge wooden devil sculpture that somebody carved and used as an effigy in satanic practices, which is very real, and people have no clue how real and how perverse and how widespread satanic practices are to this day, and all the accompanying horrors that go along with it, right? You're willfully, intentionally trying to invite these entities into your life like they're going to help you. Like you're going to have any power over these entities, right? And they're going to say, oh, well, we'll give you fame and fortune, or we'll give you some extra knowledge and power and so forth. But you are selling your soul, right? Temporarily, because the creator can correct all this information. But these people are just going down a downward slope, that very slippery slope that there few ever escape from. And it penetrates Hollywood and the music industry and all these things. Anyway, so it's all frequency. And if you want to be smart, don't go delving into the darkness when you don't know what's going on, or you don't even understand reality or consciousness or energy. And then go out there and promote yourself as a professional paranormal investigator when you really don't even understand who you are. There's so many of us that are so frustrated and so upset and angry and disappointed in these people out there who really don't have a clue, putting themselves in danger and putting families and individuals in danger who they claim to be helping when they really are no help at all in many cases. So,
and also they bring those attachments to their own home, so it affects their families and friends and everything. It's all vibration.
They don't even believe it. They don't even believe it, which is another problem, right? But so that's the thing. So if you want to, and so many people, after reading Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare, which is available on darksiege.com, by the way. I have autographed copies I mail out. It's available on Amazon. I have phenomenal reviews which speak for themselves. It's a cinematic writing style. You can't put down once you start. Both books are required reading for Bishop James Long's demonology class, because there's such a recent case of demonic possession and exorcism, and it goes on and on and on. But in fact, I just made, about this because I actually asked you to vote for me. But there's on Goodreads, I have also phenomenal tons of reviews on Goodreads. But on Listopia, I just beat The Exorcist novel as the #1 true paranormal real events book on Listopia, which I'm really excited about.
Awesome.
It's not the main paranormal page, but all these things are just little things. But darksiege.com, McLeodmetaphysics.com is my third book. I have a brand new book that I just finished today, actually, and sent it out to the screenwriter that I've been working with, and it's called Renegade of Light, and that's going to be out within the month. But it's all about helping people understand the dangers involved in getting involved in the paranormal when you don't really understand it and you don't understand what the ramifications are, but how love conquers all darkness, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to believe it too. So how to raise your vibration, how to perform sufumigation, which is a Catholic blessing of places using frankincense and myrrh, and specific prayers and intentions, but you have to know who you are first and foremost. And I know I sounded pretty harsh on these groups out there and individuals, but so many people who've read my books quit investigating the paranormal because so many people are so negatively affected. When they go into these cases and they're experiencing any number of the things I was talking about, or their fields are not in any way protecting them, they can and do bring home attachments. Mm-hmm. That's real. Bring home entities, and who don't necessarily go after them right away. They can go after the black sheep of the family, the guy that's dabbling in the occult, or the girl that's depressed or wants to kill herself, or the alcoholic, or the drug user, or the people suffering or committing abuse, things like that. They go after the weakest link of the family first. Makes sense. Why go after the primary target who's got his shields up? You go after the one that's the easiest target, and then you split everybody up. So with this case in Dark Siege, they went after the weakest link first, right? Mm-hmm. And they saved the best for last, which was the father, who never would have believed in it. And here's the kicker. The father had no clue that these things even existed, right? The family had no clue and no interest in the paranormal. They didn't even know who the Warrens were. They had no interest in any ghosts. They were just a normal family who was living their normal day-to-day lives. And they just happened to have their lives ruined because they used the Ouija board incorrectly, because they didn't believe it. They didn't understand what it can do. They opened the doorway wide open, and it just so happens that they opened it to the wrong place at the wrong time, the wrong frequency, the wrong dimension, whatever it was, and 8 different intelligences came in and totally started wreaking havoc. Oppression, infestation when they first arrive, oppression when they start going after the people involved, individually, and then collectively, and then after the father. So the father had no clue what they were, what their abilities were, what the ramifications of his challenges were, and he got ransacked. It's enough to snap somebody's mind when it's one thing to be attacked, right, or influenced from an entity that you can't discern. It's another thing to have your family mauled, right, and see things happen in your house that you never even believed possible. It's enough to snap somebody's personality or their psyche and cause them to go completely nuts and end up in a nut house.
Yep.
Right.
I would imagine that's something I wouldn't want to go near. That's
Exactly.
for sure.
Yeah.
Jason, I want to
Yeah.
thank you. Oh my gosh, we're going to have you back. You
Thanks.
are just a wealth of information. So much, not only information, but experience. And I just really enjoyed having you for the last hour. It's just amazing. And I definitely, again, we'll talk, and we definitely would like you to come back.
Please, that'd be great to do it. Thanks for having me on. And
you're wonderful. Thank you for
you.
sharing. Thank you.
Thanks.
And this week, you guys, I'm going to do Wisdom of the Week. So something pretty basic, treat others as if you would like to be treated. So as what Jason was talking about, consciousness and love and everything else. And sometimes we slip. We're not conscious of ourselves, or let alone others. But, before we start reacting, how would you like to be treated? Would you like to be treated with respect, even if sometimes we feel angry or upset or anything else? Again, treat others as if you would like to be treated. And hopefully that will be with love, compassion, respect, and honesty.
Yeah.
So that's the tip for the day. And thank you so much. It was really good. It was it's so enlightening to hear from Jason's side of the true paranormal. Take what you need. This is what I tell people. Anything that you hear on our show, take what you need and leave the rest. So if you want to go and get a hold of me, I'm Psychic Medium Sherry. You can get a hold of me on Facebook, Psychic Medium Sherry, Cheri, or you can get a hold of me on the contact form, which is my website, www.psychicmediumsherry, all one word, lowercase, CHERI.weebly.com. Again, it's www.psychicmediumsherry.weebly.com, and you can get a hold of me if you want to have a Chinese medical reading. I do medical qigong. Also, I am a psychic and a medium. So go ahead and feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to get a hold of you.
And I can attest for your abilities because you talked to me after the show last time we were on, and you were right on the money. So if you want a great reading, definitely get a hold of Sherry.
Thank you. I'm very humbled. I love doing what I do, and I just love being of service. And my passion is to help people, not on the dark side, but help people bring maybe some comfort, some healing, and perhaps some closure. In Chinese medicine also, I am not a medical doctor, but I'm able to hopefully bring some comfort and maybe a little bit of some emotional healing if it's needed. So, I love it. I love what I do, and I'd love to be of service to humanity. All right, take care, everybody. Until next week. I don't know what's going on, but we will have another new guest. And, thank you for listening in. And I just want to tell you, love you guys, and love and peace. Take care.
The portal has closed for this week, but will reopen next Saturday when Psychic Medium Sherry returns with a new guest and another step in the journey of mind, body, and spirit. If you would like to find out more about Sherry or book a reading, you can do it on Facebook. Just look up Psychic Medium Sherry or at tinyurl.com/SherryWebb. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you again next week.